for therapy today, I wanted to continue with this idea that we marry our trauma. And I just made a video exploring that. And I'm not going to repeat those ideas, but I want to continue on with this idea to create a little bit of a framework, this idea of the trauma repetition, the trauma, the repetition of how patterns repeat and folded into a new relationship is simultaneously the qualities, the states of mind, the behaviors, the thought processes, the belief, the interactions the new interactions end up mirroring previous older interactions, and we say, well, this is the attachment blueprint in our mind, and we're repeating these same patterns. And then we wake up at one day and we say, I thought I never wanted to be in this kind of relationship again, but here I am, it's happened. Or this idea of saying I married my trauma is that we might make a declaration, say, I don't want to marry my parent. I don't want to repeat my parents' relationship. And we create this very strong, definitive statement or even a boundary about how we behave in relationships. And something happens. It's almost surreal, uncanny, magical, frustrating, scary, that the relationship starts to erode and fall apart, and what we thought was happening is not happening, and what takes its place is that old familiar dynamic of the dysfunction and the context in which the trauma happened starts to show up again in our adult relationship. So like this childhood trauma isn't just something that happened to you in the past. We're not just trying to uncover past. We're saying that it is alive and living out in the present. It shows up in every interaction that you're having in your relationship today. And of course, not the word every, not every interaction, but it's enough that we might even find ourselves entering a kind of trance, and that feeling of like, I am not really myself. I'm not in my resourced self. I don't feel grounded. I don't feel that I'm changing. It's almost like you can see yourself saying the words or behaving in certain behaviors, almost like you're dissociating while the dysfunction is happening. And there are these glimpses of like, why am I doing this? I don't want this kind of relationship. Why am I responding this way? Why am I taking the bait and engaging in a particular way? So this video, the previous video I made is really about like this dynamic and trying to like capture that experience, and also offering some empathy, just the confusion, like, how does this keep happening? But for this video, also to think in terms of certain steps and how do we begin to change this. So something I'd like to introduce is this idea of transference-focused therapy. And I know that's a clunky word, but transference, and this idea that we transfer relationships, we transfer an old relationship onto a new situation. And that's somewhat of a given, that's somewhat of an assumption that we say, well, this is what we're doing, this is what happens. It's not just you, it's not unique to you, it's not only 25%. It's almost like saying like, we could pretty much assume that a very high percentage, 93% of how we orient is just constantly recreating the same patterns that we already have history in creating. Now, take with a grain of salt that whole business, the percentage of 93, I don't know, I'm making that up. But this idea, like, it's a very high percentage that it makes us really question, are we just kind of robots? And are we so easily enter the repetition of the dysfunction. And it's like we can't separate out what's new and what is old, which is the point of what I'm saying here, that we do this transference-focused type therapy is like to actively track. Even the word, this is a bit of a harsh word. I'm more of a fan of a softer word, but the word, like, we interrogate ourself with kindness. How's that? I don't know if that's an oxymoron, but can you really challenge yourself with a sense of kindness, but to look at the feelings and the behaviors that pull you into an experience towards your partner in the present, but while that's happening, you're like linking your particular reactions, your trigger, your body sensations, emotional flashbacks. You're trying to link those reactions to dynamics with the original attachment wound, original attachment figures, trying to link it to have some context, maybe memory, but it's hard to mention memory because many people will say, well, I don't have a memory. I don't, one, if your childhood is fuzzy and you don't really remember that much, but also it's very hard to put our finger on attachment wounds, attachment injuries. And if we're trying to make a comparison, one reason why it's hard is because this happens developmentally over time. There's this idea of incident specific trauma and then also developmental emotional trauma, which is really harder to identify. It doesn't happen like an incident specific trauma is like a tornado. A tornado wiped out your house and someone was injured in the tornado. It's like you really know the date, you know what happened. Even if those memories are fuzzy, it is a marker in time to say, yeah, this is what happened to us, the family, this is what happened to me. When it has to do with emotional, developmental attachment trauma, we're looking at maybe over the 14 years, 18 years, 9 years, like this chunk of time of not so much what happened, but what didn't happen. The degree and level of engagement, degrees and level of asking you about your inner world, of being able to show up in a way that creates a sense of shared experience, a resonance. It's called limbic resonance, has to do with how the brain your limbic brain matches up with another person. You know that saying like, I just feel like we are in sync. So that experience of being in sync creates a sense of reassurance. It creates a sense of connection, and we start to move into the we. There's you, and there's me, and then when we're in relationship, now we have like this we space, and the more we spend experiencing our we hyphen nes, our we-ness, that there's an incredible sense of, I just feel like you get me. I just feel like you know me. I just feel like we are on the same wavelength. And then it is reciprocal. It is mutual. I get you. You feel that I understand you. You feel that we are on the same wavelength. And it is this back and forth rhythm of being available to each other. And this is oftentimes in arguments, specifically like with partners. And if there's one partner who doesn't really quite understand what we're talking about, and the other partner doesn't have the language to explain it, they often use the word connect and say, I really need you to connect more, please. Why can't you connect more? I just need you to be more open and available. And the other person, like, I don't know what you're talking about. Sometimes the other person might not know, or maybe you're the other person, you might not know what this means, is because you haven't really experienced this that much. You've experienced the absence and the lack of emotional resonance and the lack of attunement. The other word is where we feel attuned to each other. So let's say you notice this pattern repeating in your life, and what I'm saying, like, well, it almost feels like we're married to our trauma as much as we didn't want to be. Like, now I'm married to my trauma. How do I work with this? So we're saying, if you can practice some kind of transference focused therapy. I'm even in this moment calling it a kind of self-therapy. Great to do it with a therapist. Great to notice it when it shows up in the context with a therapist. But this is something you can start practicing today. And what it means is you're really beginning to be curious. You need a level of curiosity. You need a level of discernment. You fundamentally have to be interested in yourself, in relationship dynamics, in noticing the other person's behavior and noticing your behavior. And you already hear as I say that, like, it's starting to get a little complicated. Like, this is layered. It does require a bit of an expansive brain to like hold all the layers and to look at the other person's behavior and look at my behavior, and this was said and this, then I felt triggered, and then my trigger triggered the other person, and then they said something that was provocative and I felt wounded and hurt, then I imploded, and then when I implode and I'm in this place, I can say, how is this exactly like in the previous experience? And have I ever felt this before? Now, if you can't identify, like, yes, I felt it when I was 9 years old on, September, 22nd. It doesn't have to be that exact, but you can begin to, how about the word impression? You just notice, yeah, there's something familiar as in of family. An example might be like, let's say you find you have this wave of jealousy that whenever your partner laughs with friends, and actually I've had clients before who they felt, this is somewhat of a tangent maybe, but clients who they feel jealous of the family dog, that when their partner gives attention to the dog, it even triggers some insecurity because there's a purity, a simplicity, a kind of real direct softness in the interaction with the dog. And then the client has this, something activates and is observing and saying, wow, you don't connect with me on that level. And I'm not saying that we want to be treated like dogs. But I'm saying that quality of that pure, simple interaction, and also the dog probably has a lot of joy, and dogs are just so loving and lovely. And there's something about that sweet interaction. Let's say that brings up some kind of a memory imprint of when a parent, let's say you're the older sibling, and the parent had another baby and brought the baby home, and all of a sudden you're age 2, you're age 3, and mom is really delighted and engaged with the infant and is not paying attention to you the way you had the day prior, the day earlier, before the new baby came. For a 3-year-old, those feelings are frightening. I'm all of a sudden not important. Something has changed here, and I feel threatened by my new brother or sister. So it's conceivable, very possible, if you have other attachment injuries. We're not just, it's not just that one moment that would impact, create attachment trauma and an attachment wound. There has to be some kind of like ongoing accumulative experience of being not seen, ignored. There's not a real engagement to know who you are. An ongoing, reoccurring experience of feeling like you're invisible or that you don't matter, or there's some ongoing kind of abandonment. And over time, that's what is creating this attachment wound. And so you're in a relationship now, you're an adult. Let's say you haven't been in a relationship for a while, so these kind of feelings don't get stirred up. And all of a sudden, your new partner, or a partner, let's say you've been with for a year, you're at a party, and your partner just laughs in a kind of innocent way and is talking to another person at the party, a guest at the party. And you just see that kind of, your partner's enjoying the other person. That's the kind of emotional flashback, that the impression of that older experience is still living in your body, and you just find that you're jealous. You find that you're triggered. And it's that trigger also that sometimes we just go into a trance and we cannot handle that trigger. and we might create a scene. We might pull our partner aside in the back room and argue, what are you doing? Don't talk to that person like that. I don't understand. Why are you being so incredibly supportive and friendly and loving towards that person? Because you weren't like that with me yesterday or today. And then your partner is a bit confused. It would be a good word. Because the word here is congruent and incongruent. Your response becomes incongruent with the reality of the situation. You are amplifying the intensity of the moment with this reaction and with this trigger. So, one way to work with this is we have to start catching ourselves and say, oh, I'm triggered. We have to start saying, is this really about the other person? Is this really about the person my partner is talking to? Is this about how my partner is talking to this other person? Does this really have anything to do with today? Now, here's the challenging part, as if it's not already challenging at this point. And this is what I tell clients often. This is what we work through a lot. Your intuition, your observation of your partner in real time, in the present moment with this other person, you might still have a valid judgment. You might still have a valid response or opinion about how your partner's interacting and laughing with this friend. So for sake of conversation and argument, let's just say your partner is over time has stopped speaking to you in a very lively, let's say you argue a lot. Let's say you have so much stress and tension in your relationship. Your partner is very a bit cautious to even engage you because you both are engaging in this dance of conflict to the point where your partner just doesn't think it's safe to be playful, to open up and connect with you. And both of you then are really on guard. And the fun, the light conversation, the laughing is really drained from your relationship because your partner's cautious, understandably. And maybe you're equally cautious too. And it's like you no longer share. And I know what I'm talking about is pretty common in couples counseling. When couples come in, there is no fun, there is no laughter, there's no joy. I mean, some part of the healing process and doing work in couples is like, let's just get to a place of a little more levity, and everything is not so intense and serious and like urgent and emergency, and we got to crack the code of some incredible riddle and puzzle, and if we don't, we're gonna all explode in great deep suffering. I mean, it's the stakes. When attachment trauma is present, it feels like everything is so serious. And if you haven't laughed and enjoyed, or you have not noticed your partner enjoying you, but now you look over at a party and your partner is talking to someone and they're laughing, and you can see your partner is enjoying that other person, and it just feels like, well, they've been denying me that same kind of enjoyment for a while. And let's say you've had a parent in the past or a family. Let's say the whole family system is about denying each other connection. And here you look over and you can, there it is again. I see it. Yet again, I'm on the outside. Yet again, I'm not a priority. I'm not, the other person's not coming to have fun with me, to laugh with me, to enjoy, so that we can enjoy each other. There's just always this tension and this stress. So that example that I'm giving right now, that is still existing in real time. This is not all about like, all of this is coming from your past. What makes it complicated is that both of those things are true, but they feed off of each other and they mirror each other. They amplify each other. And sometimes you have to take it slowly and break it down one at a time. That you, for me, I take the historical approach first and say, let's really go back to as early as I can. What is the origin of this? Where did I learn this feeling, this fear, this shutting down, this feeling rejected? Or the example that I'm giving, it's kind of a jealousy. A jealousy comes up. And try to put it in a bigger context of, well, this is something I've carried. I don't know if I'm a fan of the word baggage, but that's a common thing people say, like, okay, this is my baggage that I'm bringing up, and I brought my baggage to the party, and I see my partner speaking to another person, and then all of a sudden I'm having a meltdown and I'm feeling rejected, and my partner's not here for me, and I'm not getting any reassurance, and I just start unraveling and spiraling into a mood, into an attitude, into shutting down. You might be at the party coaching yourself, saying, come on, talk, come on, be lively, don't shut down now. And it's like you can't help it. And your face, you look like a, forgive me for saying it like this, but you look like a moody bitch. And you're just all like, you're not having it at this party. And then you go to your partner, come on, we got to go. We got to go. I'm so pissed off right now. And those two things could be true. That one, it is a lot of this history getting activated, and you're feeling the hurt that happened at age 9 and age 10 or age 3. We started in this example, it's like age 3. But it's then also amplifying. You're also in real time not getting connection and interaction with your partner. And then we need language. So here's the healing. That's the transference. You're transferring this older experience onto the current relationship. But then you need the language to communicate that, not only to yourself, so you can work out in your own brain, but you got to communicate to your partner. Say, hey, I want to share with you what's going on. Now, here's a big key, most important thing. You need a partner who says, yes, tell me. Yes, explain it. Yes, I want to listen. If you don't have a partner that gives a shit and is unable to say, well, this, I'm fearful that we'll get into an argument. I'm fearful that this might push both of our buttons. I have attachment trauma too. So if you're sharing your attachment trauma, you might just trigger me. If you have a tone in your voice that is going to be somewhat nasty or judgmental of who I am at the party, talking to someone, having fun, laughing, and you're going to be critical of me, well, I'm very sensitive to criticism. And so this is not going to go well. So isn't this so complicated, just hearing the level of skill and discernment and sophistication and slow pacing and pause and take a break and really hold your partner's feelings while simultaneously holding your feelings. Here's the hard part too. You might really, really want your partner to hold your feelings, and they don't have the ability to, because number one, the thing that you want them to hold isn't even theirs. They're not even responsible for it. You're trying to have them hold grief, jealousy, sadness, rejection that happened at age 3. Now, of course, we want understanding. Of course, we would love for them to have empathy and say, ouch, that's painful, honey. I could understand. They empathize. I can understand why that would be so hard for you. This is what we practice in couples work, is we got to slow this down. These conversations happen very quickly. We are already prepared to have a rebuttal, to speak over the other person, to be defensive, to defend our own woundedness, even though we don't want to be wounded. It's almost like we're making excuses for ourselves. And the reason why we do that is we're trying to soften the prickly bits, soften how much this really, I'm trying to have a conversation with my partner, and simultaneously I'm being like stabbed in the gut with a knife of this attachment trauma. This, while a siren is in my ear going, emergency, 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 this person's not here for you. It's scary. It's scary. It's scary. And we're trying to say, come on, come back to being an adult. Come on, come on, please be grounded. Have some clarity of mind. Find some equanimity. Find some breathe. That whole business about please. Breathe. Oh, empathy to you, empathy to me, all of us. This is really, really hard stuff. If we can get to a somewhat reasonably calm rhythm, the amplification has been de-amplified. There is a bit more perspective, and the word here is spaciousness. You might feel it inside of you. This kind of, it opens up. It's not as tight. It's not as constricted. There's a bit more of an openness. And then we need the skill to say, honey, I want to talk about the party. And that was so hard for me. And there were multiple things going on. I got triggered. And oh, did I get triggered? And I thought I was having a good time. I was having nachos. I was talking to the neighbor person. And I looked over and I see you talking to the other neighbor. And it looked like that you were having fun and laughing and you weren't guarded. And when you and I speak a lot, I observe you being guarded because we have a lot of tension in our life. We have a lot of tension in our relationship. And when you're guarded, I'm guarded. And when I'm guarded, you're guarded. And it takes out all the fun. We don't have a lot of lightness in our relationship these days because of all of the arguing and the fact that we're playing out our own attachment trauma with each other. And we have resentment that our attachment needs are not getting met, that our attachment needs are being ignored. And we're living with this chronic sense of lack. And sometimes I judge you for lacking things, and I know you judge me for lacking things. And we might even throw little barbs back and forth at each other, these little digs. Even when I don't want to, even when I don't mean to, I find it like slips out. And it's because I'm defensive. I'm just constantly in a state of feeling defended about you're not seeing me. You're not connecting with me. You. And then you feel you feel that barrage, that pointed finger. And many people in your situation like this, it feels like you're being criticized. And that criticism goes to another level of it gets interpreted as you're not enough. And I got to keep proving to you you're not enough. And that wears on your sense of self. That really wears you down. And you don't feel like I'm on your side building you up. You feel like I'm tearing you down. All of that obstacle, limitation, baggage showed up at the party tonight. Just when I'm eating my nachos and salsa and I look over and you're having a good time. It is so painful because you're not having a good time with me. And it's so painful because we deny each other that level of simple interaction and lightness and laughing. And I could see in your eyes that the other person was enjoying you. And I could see in your eyes that you were enjoying the other person. And the grief that crushes me in that we don't have that. And it's me being denied that kind of playful enjoyment that is just like back to age 3 in childhood, even though I was too young even to remember. But like growing up, I just at some point felt like my parent was more focused on my sibling. And I lived with a kind of jealousy of missing out. And when I saw you just having a casual conversation with some laughter and your guard was down. See, when you and I speak, we have our guard up, and we're a bit tit for tat. We're a bit defensive, and you weren't defensive there. And there's a deep sadness that comes up of like how I'm being denied that, or we don't share that kind of interaction. And that level of grief, that moment was the trigger. What happens is a deep wave of sadness and a grief. It relates to this unresolved trauma that I have in my history, and it shows up in our present moment. So two things are happening, multiple things are happening, but the two things to acknowledge is one, I'm seeing that interaction through the lens of the history of the attachment wound. And also, it's illuminating that in real time today, in our current relationship, in the last week, the last month, the last 6 months, we don't connect on that level the way you did for 5 minutes with the neighbor that we're not even really friends with, that you don't even really know, but you connected. And that sparked in me a level of jealousy that I can't handle, that burns me up, that where I crumble and fall apart. And instead of being able to attend to my grief and meet it with some softness, I meet it with anger and cover up. And I don't want to be wounded in that place again. So that's why I get nasty. And that's why I start pointing the finger. And that's why I start an argument. Because I don't have the skills yet to manage that grief, but I do have the skills to keep arguing and demanding that you connect with me. However, as I keep demanding that you connect with me, I'm pushing you away even more. So much pain. And we just keep playing. It's just one party. And this might happen when we go to the kids' school and you talk to another parent. This might happen when we go to a family gathering and you speak to the same sibling that I grew up with, that create that this sense of disconnect and jealousy where it got planted. That drives me nuts when you enjoy my sibling, etc., etc. And what would be helpful is if the other partner, and you don't talk as long as you don't speak as long as I just spoke. You take breaks and you look at your partner and you breathe together and you create a dialogue out of it. So it's not just you saying all of that like I did. Take it into chunks. And in the process, the partner's job is hopefully, if the partner wants to create repair and the partner cares also, the partner joins you in saying, I can understand where this is coming from. I have some of my own similar experiences, or my experience is totally different, but I do know what it's like to get triggered in relationship. I do know what it's like to be in a family where I'm ignored or discounted. Now, here's also the challenge. You might be with a partner who goes, no, but I have no idea what you're talking about. I shouldn't laugh in this moment because that's not helpful, but I'm also laughing at, it just is an added level of confusion and craziness if the other partner doesn't really know how to offer empathy. And then also, one had a particular childhood that didn't, that they didn't have very many experiences similar to what yours are or were. But also is not really equipped to go inward and question their own experience, understand their own experience in a way that they can then bring up an example to mirror through understanding your experience. Do you even hear how I'm trying to explain this? How complicated, how sophisticated it is? I mean, there's a paradox here. So many of these conversations about relationships include paradox, but there's a simplicity to all of this. The simplicity is, look at a child interacting with another child. It is so free. There's not a lot of complex, layered thinking, self-doubt, confusion going on. It's like when two children are in a state of play, there's a natural curiosity and a rhythm of your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn. Like, hey, that's cool. Hey, what's that about? Hey, do you want to let's go over here. Okay, we'll go over here. And it's in that openness and curiosity of play that there's just a very simplicity about that. And we're trying to recreate those very simple moments. That attachment, connection, being available to another person is actually very simple. The paradox is, as you hear me talking about it, and we talk about all of the layers, complex obstacles, moments we shut down, history, present moment, hurt on top of hurt, needing to have the skill to language this, needing the skill to have empathy, to mirror back to your partner that you heard what they just said, or you didn't hear what it's a skill to be able to say, honey, I have no idea what you're talking about, and I really want to be available to you. Can we please try again? Let me put it in my words, but I feel I'm going to get it wrong, because there's just something about me that when you start talking about this stuff, I really kind of shut down and turn off. When it has to do with, transference focused type therapy, where else did I turn off in my family? Why do I have a history of just shutting down and turning off? Why do I have a history of not being able to remember what another person has shared with me about their emotional experience? Why is it that I don't remember the emotional experience of my partner, even though we've had the same conversation 47 times over the last year and a half? So it just gets a little. This is why we go to couples therapy, because we try to get back to the place of the simplicity, practicing that simple curiosity, and being in the present moment. To the example I gave of your partner's at a party, and you see how your partner's interacting with someone, there's a lightness and a freedom in the simplicity of them laughing with each other. That's what we're trying to get back to. So it is simple, but then unpacking this attachment trauma and all of the triggers that come with returning to being vulnerable and then having your needs denied, returning to being open and then feeling shut down because you're met again with a wall, with not being seen, with silence, a kind of withholding, a distraction. I mean, one of the greatest distractions are our phones. Just, the phrase, we're here, but we're not here. We're in the same room, but we've been ignoring each other for an hour and a half. There's no real interaction happening here. And our nervous system picks up on it. Our attachment system, it's like having potato chips for dinner. I mean, you can only have so many potato chips before it's like, I am hungry. I need a big sandwich and a big salad. I need green things, and I need a real meal. And a lot of us are having these kind of potato chip relationships where we're, the phrase living off of crumbs. There's just it's not very nourishing. And to even engage like this video, the content in this video, like what we're talking about, it does require fundamentally believing in a meal of a relationship, believing that we want more than crumbs, and believing that we can start practicing doing that. Sometimes we find that we might have picked a partner, or this could be true of ourselves, that we don't value a relationship that feels very nourishing, and that all we know, our history, back to this idea of transference focused therapy, of looking at the past, maybe you've only had potato chip type nourishment, crumbs, interaction, relationships your whole life in your family, and you really haven't really thought you wanted anything more. That then becomes an issue of compatibility of the relationship, and really, really asking yourself and asking your partner and having these real hard conversations of, do we even want the same thing? I want depth. I want continued investment in an attachment bond. I want to feel like we are able to share who we are emotionally. But when we do that, that actually feels uplifting and nourishing, because some people, maybe this is you, report that actually feels draining, and they don't want to talk about their feelings or emotions or any, people who don't want to do this have switched off this video, however long I've been speaking, I don't know. But, 20 minutes ago, they're gone. They're not even on this channel anymore. And they really like, I'm not subscribing to this channel. So I hope that this is helpful, trying to break down these patterns. I'm trying to frame this in this idea of like, well, this is, what are we going to talk about for therapy today? To think it in terms, think about it in terms of, a therapeutic intervention and therapeutically. Please do all of the things. You know what I'm talking about. It's like the click like and the subscribe, and really leave a comment. That is helpful to me because I find out like what you're thinking and how you feel about this video. Now I'm doing something new also. Instead of at the beginning of the video of like going, I'm Alan Robarge, blah, blah, blah. I'm leaving that till now for whatever reason. But, if you don't know who I am an attachment focused psychotherapist and a relationship educator. And I work with people. I like to talk about, I like to help people who really feel crushed in their relationships, that it's like you die when a relationship ends, or even before it ends. You start to feel like you're suffocating, you're wilting, you're losing your sense of self. And when a relationship ends, that grief just tears us apart and we feel shattered. And so the work that I do is about, let's start to work with all those different pieces of being shattered when a relationship ends, start to figure out how to put our heart back together, and simultaneously we're forging a new sense of self. That's the work that I've been doing for years. That's what I think is important, and it links to my personal history. So it's very much in alignment with my own healing process. Thanks for watching this video. More videos similar to this. Share the video with others, please. Anyone you think needs to hear this message, that would be helpful. Thank you. Bye.